Hi everybody. I will just give you some, it's not a lot of text, it's more photos to give an insight what happened after the film came out, and then we'll have a discussion, and hopefully you also can have some questions. This is the lady you've seen in the film. We actually didn't show any consumer throwing food into the waste bins, but her example already made it clear, and so the impact on persons to feel responsible themselves was kind of inbuilt, and was important, but it was like not in a way that you make something wrong, but it was a way that people could discover themselves. And I think this is maybe the most important when you do something on responsibility in the environment. If you try to educate people, you ought to do this or you ought not to do that, you get instantly counter reactions that are negative. So we had the first TV broadcast of a shorter version in 2010. Which is unusual for cinema documentaries. They usually come out first in cinema. In that case, we, well, I have to say we were pitching, and then the broadcaster came to us and said, okay, we offer you an amount of money, which was, well, fairly enough to finish the film, but we risked ruining our cinema plans. So we still thought, okay, we try to make it the other way around, start in TV, start at that point with a campaign, and then having a cinema release 1 year later. Most people told us this is impossible. This has didn't happen for a long time, and we were still hoping it works out, and finally it worked out. But the reasons why it worked out, I will tell you during the speech. It had something to do with the topic, that the topic was really new. It had also something to do that we had a lot of NGO partners that really created a buzz around. And we created our own news, let's say. We were feeding the newspaper with figures that were new for Germany at least. And the cinema viewers were outstanding for a documentary at least. I don't want to go too much into the details, but this shows you that to make a documentary needs some time. And we developed the topic, that means how to tell the story, in a program called the Documentary Campus Masterschool. And I really can, and there's lots of similar programs around. Larger ones were like this one that takes a whole year, where you have like 4 weeks within this year that you gather with other European filmmakers. I also met Hungarians there, so it's really open you write a proposal with your project, and then they decide if you take place. And what is really nice there, they included already in this development phase to think about impact and to think about campaigning. And then came the second year when we actually shot the film, and this is a good moment to start to create a community when you have photos and maybe even short bits of video that you can post on Facebook or on other channels, like I read a YouTube channel being created. And yeah, a community, to build up a community needs some time, but this is a good point to start it. Usually most filmmakers start building up a community when the editing is finished, but then you will have, like, when the community is grown up, it will be kind of late. So it's good to start this in an early phase. The problem is always financing it. The broadcasters don't do it. the cinema says, okay, first finish your film, then come afterwards to us and ask us about money, but not now. So you have to do it on your own in this phase. If you don't have an impact fund, this, we'll come later to this, this is existing now. At that time, we haven't had any of these. And yeah, then comes the third year while editing, and parallel to this, we established contact to NGOs where we were convinced that it's really according to their targets, and they are really interested to support us. And finally, the real campaign started when we released the film, but it was all prepared from longhand. I managed that we created news, and what's news in this case? It's the number, the figures. There has been no study in Germany. Nobody knew anything about the amount of waste. So what we finally did is we took studies from Britain and other places and extrapolated them to Germany, assuming that the German consumer is not that different from the British consumer. And finally, after some years, there have been studies and that showed us that we were not so wrong. So the estimation was quite good, actually. But in that case, we ended up on a tabloid. I mean, this is really the kind of newspaper, usually you don't think about serious topics, but food waste was one of the topics that really was, yeah, concerns everybody and really was able to enter the yellow press that usually, I mean, Heidi Klum naked in a video and these kind of things on the front page. And then the topic of our film, and inside they mentioned that this film is coming out. So yeah, it's a strange kind of, this is not the usual press we cover, but I just want to show how far it can reach. And then of course we made this, what is important when you start a film, we tried to enter to festival. We had the big opportunity to be presented on the Berlinale Festival. And of course this was helpful. This was really helpful for the start. But this is just something every filmmaker tries, of course. But what you can also do during this festival, we did that during Berlinale, but outside the usual thing, outside the usual markets, we made a special NGO screening. There were people from Greenpeace, from Slow Food, and a baker, and other associations, and a broadcaster. And we gathered 100 people for a release party in a place where there was a food hub being created, so it was also a kind of trendy place. So yeah, you can use this to create your own buzz. And well, this also helped a lot to forge a coalition to support the release half a year after that. Yeah, we also did books, but this is a problem if you're a filmmaker. Maybe you can write, but you have no time at that moment. So I asked a co-author. Most of the information comes from my side. He wrote half of the book, so that we were able to have a simultaneous release. So the reason why this book became a bestseller also has something to do that it came out parallel to the cinema release. I don't want you to read and to translate because this is in German, but it shows you a little bit my thinking or how we conceived the whole thing. In the middle is the film. The film is still the core of the whole thing. Then there's this classical marketing, like the trailer, the flyers, and then there is online strategy, but this is the special thing, the offline events and things that you tend to forget because they sound like old-fashioned. They're not. I will show you. We have, of course, first of all, the idea, what is campaigning? Is this something, I come from journalism, is this something that fits together? And I would say there's a big difference between a campaign that Greenpeace or any other NGO is running in a campaign we as media person do. My aim was to start a debate in society. My aim was not to create some ambience to that a special law is being changed, or that people give me donations or whatever. These are NGO campaigns. I did a campaign with a rather open aim to start a debate on a big topic, and it happens even that people that are not paid or not engaged, like this guy with the Taste the Waste clothes, he's just a fan, and he did that during a demonstration. I was happy to see that. And on the left, this is the starting of one of the public events, one of the first public events near Berlin. We gathered what the farmers left on the fields. There was a farmer telling us, so these are the pumpkins that don't look perfect. I have to leave them on the fields. You can have them for free if you want. So we gathered them with a lot of people. Then we hired a cook that was experienced with great quantities, that had these tools for to serve hundreds and thousands of people. And finally, a lot of people came, and this was all in the month of the cinema release. Public discussions were being made, and you ask yourself, how can one filmmaker do that? I would not be able to do that, of course. This, for instance, has been an offer by a local event agency that said, okay, we are making money with industry. In a few cases, we are doing pro bono stuff when we think something is important. In your case, we are arranging you one event in our town, everything for free, and we want to make it perfect. To afterwards go to get an award, an event award, and they finally won it even. So, yeah, we had some T-shirts and so on, and in one city, the farmers came down with all their stuff, and a church chorus sang, and yeah, it was like smashing the number of people, thousands of people, and I think finally it was we couldn't cover the territory. It was like 15 or 20 cities, and most of the events have been carried out by NGOs, Slow Food, the food banks, and or in this case the 4 chefs that created a coalition in their hometown. So it was different. I couldn't have done it, or we as a production house, or even the cinema distributor wouldn't be able to do that. So this is what happens in the year of when the film came out, and what is necessary, because the cinema distributor, he does a lot. He's responsible for the release, and he does a lot of groundwork. And we finally could convince him that he gave us some money to coordinate all these events, so that they really take place in the right moment and with the right concept. And we haven't had the money for a promotion agency or a social media agency. It was definitely too expensive at that time. My last cinema documentary, we had a much bigger budget, and we had the possibility to hire agents to do all this work, but at that time we did it on our own. Yeah, all the other things I already mentioned, I guess. Yeah, and well, we also did, of course, a lot of online stuff, but to reach the number of fans, it needs a long time. It really needs a long time. Don't do it 3 weeks before cinema release, it's too late. What happened also is that, but this happened after the film, and this shows you also maybe that one of the reasons why all this worked, an NGO doesn't want to make marketing for a film. they used the film for their purposes, and they also got. I mean, it was obvious that I did the film, and my motivation was not to sell something. So the buzz around the film helped creating something new in Germany. This was the creation of a social movement called food sharing. Well, there was people inside the film crew who said, why don't we create a solution? There's so many things being shared on the internet, why not food? But there were also, from other parts of Germany, people coming to me because I made this film. They were asking me, we want to create a website. And I said, okay, great. There's this idea is around in many places. Why don't we gather? Why don't we work together? So this was in 2012. The movement and the website Food Sharing was born, which is really became very big now. After it will now in December will have its 5th birthday. They have these public fridges, for instance. This is on a farming shop. When he has leftovers that he cannot sell, he puts them into this fridge and everybody can take it for free. Doesn't want to throw them away. He's kind of engaged, he does that because he really believes that food should not end up in the bin. We did, well, there was this, like an education of food saver that need to be trained in hygienic questions. I didn't do that on my own. There was already a lot of people, a board of people organizing all that, but this was following a lot of them, when you ask them, they said, okay, we were first inspired by the film. So this is, for me, was more important than any figure about viewers or whatever. And they also did some kind of public demonstrations here in front of one of the biggest supermarkets in Germany, Rewe. I think they're even active here in Hungary. They forced the bakers in front of their supermarkets to have the shelves always full until the end of the day. So this obviously means that when you have until like 20 or 21 or 22 hours, you need to have everything full, and then you close the shop, and yeah, you have to throw out a lot of bread, and so they're responsible for a lot of garbage. And yeah, they still have this practice. We couldn't change it with this demonstration, but yeah, they didn't like it as well. So they don't like it, and they pretend always we don't have waste. We give it away to the food banks, and yeah, it's good to have a constant reminder that it's not true, unfortunately. And then came also industry events. And this is always something you have to decide yourself. Are you going to the packaging industry when they want to, when they make up a Safe Food Congress? Of course, to sell more packaging. I mean, this is an industry, they have a commercial purpose. Are you going there yeah, put maybe some critical questions? I can do that, but in the end, you're serving their PR purposes, or are you not going there? So I always tend to think about it. I went there, and I think it was quite interesting because they were also, one of their coalition partner was the FAO, the World Food Organization of the UN. So yeah, they have, I think this whole thing is not black and white, because there have been big corporations really doing something about food waste. And in the same time, their practices in general are doubtful. So my approach was going there and still keeping critical, especially when it comes to the government. I mean, our government is so inactive on this question that it makes me always angry, especially, I mean, as a filmmaker, you very often you don't have the opportunity to act as an expert on the parliamentary committee on food. In this case, there was no expert on food waste, so they asked me really to come. And I was sitting beside those people that are always there, the lobbyists from trade and industry. It was this weird experience, and I've seen how this works. I've seen really, they made a study from the government, a very good study, but then before the study was released, they needed like 2 months, and I said, what are they doing? So they made a short version of the text, and all the journalists, they only read this short version, and now in this short version they wrote 61% of the garbage is being made by the consumers. And this figure is misleading because the study never included agriculture, so a big part, maybe a third of this waste pile was not included in the study. So a percentage is also totally misleading. But they managed, and in this parliament's meeting, the industry and trade said, well, we don't waste a lot, so, but the consumers are really responsible for lots, so for the majority. Let's focus on the consumers. Okay, they were telling us they're doing noise, I don't know what it is, but and this is what happened. They created a public campaign. This is what is on the left. This is the public campaign on food waste. They created a campaign that hope they don't come down at some point. And the campaign focused on the consumers. And yeah, they asked me if I would enter the jury of this campaign, and I said yes. And at the same time, when I got there, I criticized that it's only attacking the consumers. So you see, my role was kind of, I got an activist. I got from a filmmaker, I got more and more involved in this stuff. I'm still continuing filmmaking, no fears. I will not ending up having the majority of my time in these kind of activities, but I'm kind of happy that at least this campaign opened up a little bit, so the award they give out is also now for corporations for the economy, which I think is important, that there is solutions out, and they need to get support. And yeah, to the left side you see the minister, he's leaning like this, so already his body language shows you what's his opinion about me when I'm talking. But yeah, we meet each other, and yeah, it's interesting because I don't know who will be next. We just had an election, but it can get worse. And I finish with my presentation with this because this is so nice to see that also artists get involved. Uli Westphal is a photographer from Berlin, and he created a series. Really, it's in the galleries. It's a long series of veggies. He called potatoes, because people that see these kind of potatoes down there, they might think it's a mutation. They only know the perfectly shaped ones from the supermarkets, and he arranged the fruits and veggies in a way that the limits between the species you don't recognize, the tomatoes and the paprika, and then it goes to the strawberries, and you have really to look very, very precisely to see the limits. So, yeah, I'm happy that I could. These are the kind of things that really change people's thinking, and I'm happy that also a lot of other filmmakers took over and continued my work. I feel this is really valuable, but I have to say I suffered from at the moment when I started that, because I had to think about campaigning in this documentary campus. I told you, they always told me, Valentin, think big. Okay, I thought big, but I didn't know how big actually the reaction will be. I just continued because for myself it was important. I thought this is important, so I did it. But the situation at that time was not that I really got paid for it. Now we have, and we can talk about that if you have questions, now we have fortunately foundations that are created to support impact if you have a campaign topic, because broadcasters, they don't care about that. Usually cinema releases, they might have a certain interest, but not too much. So it's, if you don't want to exploit yourself, think twice. Thank you very much.
I wanted to ask you, Laszlo, you can imagine the same scene in Hungary, for example?
Yeah, to be honest, the scale that the film represented is obviously designed for Western European welfare states. So here in Central Europe, it's slightly different, but you know, just to make you more conscious, so it's exactly the same, but the scale is a little bit shorter. So.
Yeah, you will come to this scale as well. I mean, we were always saying American is more wasteful, but now we're going the American way more and more every year.
Exactly.
But I wanted to ask you if you can imagine a similar campaign and build a similar community with the help of the documentary, for example?
I think, yes, it is possible, though since we are a grassroots movement, so I can only see this thing from my perspective, and we are not even like an official NGO, so we are a kind of a movement, Food Not Bomb. So from our perspective, I think it is important to show people. So yeah, maybe we can utilize it. We can make a film club, but on a wider scale, or on a wider platform, this needs to be done. Like, let's say that, I don't know if you know, like the Hungarian food we have, there is a Hungarian food bank as well. So there are other platforms that can utilize this film better than us, I think.
Okay. And which obstacles you see if, for example, it should be a campaign or making a documentary about it?
To make a documentary, well, I'm not a filmmaker, so I definitely don't know how it is possible to raise funds, but probably fundraising. But you know, to get to the decision makers, I think that's the important thing, because if there is a lack of communication, or they are just neglecting you, or they don't want to bother with food waste on different levels, so both agriculture, both consumers, industry, packaging. So as you can see, it's a complex picture. So it is possible, but there are so many partners, as Valentin showed us. So I think it is possible, but really hard.
And that was a part-time job or a full job for you for this time?
Well, actually, I said we had no fun, but that's not totally correct. We had from the 6 months before the screening, or 4 months, I had money from the cinema distributor for half an employee for 4 months. So I could really tell to my only employee at that time that she's well, I put in the money for the other half. She's full-time campaigner now, and it was needed actually. I mean, you know that to gather NGOs is hard work. They have different opinions, they have their own aims, and to coordinate that and to give them also the freedom to have their. I mean, if you would have, like I showed you some of the images, there was this branding tastefully very visible. In some cases this was no problem, in other cases they wanted to have their own branding. It's okay, I was not forcing anything, because it was not in the first hand about marketing the film. It wouldn't have worked. It was in the first hand bringing out the topic, and it would help anyway the film. So, and we didn't care about branding.
Okay, because I saw it's a huge work. So it's not only go in the office, but you have to think about it always. So that's why I asked how many energy you put in it.
Yeah, and there was this conceiving it already 1 year before. So I mean, if you start from zero, you need your time to think about it and to discuss it with others. Discuss it first internally, then with the cinema distributor. And when everybody agrees, you go to the NGOs. This needs months.
Okay. Anybody has questions?
Yeah. Hi everyone. I want to ask you, Valentin, how long have you took to do all the research about how much food we throw to the bin, and
So
how long did you take to do the documentary?
Mm-hmm. So you speak about the research about the facts, and yeah, of course this is the beginning, and it was difficult because there was no study around in Central Europe or in continental Europe. There was only one woman in Vienna that had a little bit of local knowledge about the food in the garbage. Yeah, finally I discovered that in Britain there has been made some studies, fortunately, very recently. It was also new for them, but it took me maybe 1 year, not only to research the figures, but also to think about how to tell the story. It's a complex story, and then yeah, you have to, when there's still this law in cinema, you ought not to bore. I mean, so you need to not to make it with a lot of statistical stuff or too complicated. So it was not only the scope and the figures that I needed to investigate, also the persons that transport that to the audience. And this was maybe even more difficult because the supermarkets, they didn't want to show their waste. I needed a long time to find a supermarket boss that said, yes, I'm part of this wasteful system. I hate it, and I want that this is being shown. But I really needed a long time for a person like this. And the same for the farmers. The farmers don't want to blame other farmers, and this is a kind of profession where people don't want to be in the public so much. So it took me more than the actual research to find then the protagonists. And yeah, then as I showed you briefly, this was like, maybe it was more than a year, this research phase, and then 1 year of shooting, not on one block, but in different occasions, and 1 year of editing, and then the release also took in total 1 year. And to survive in this time, I needed to do other small television films. I have to make clear it was not a full-time job with this. We finally had quite a bit of money from the cinema release because we were really successful, but you cannot rely on that. We didn't know that before.
Thank you.
And may I ask you, Laszlo, that you have many experiences with supermarkets and others because it's your work. How is it working in Hungary? Can you explain?
So with our movement, what we do is basically recollecting the veggies and the fruits that are considered to be not edible, and we do it on 2 marketplaces here in Budapest. One is the central market at Thurn Square, and the other one is the one at Fehérvári, which is on the Buda side. And so, since you know that these EU regulations actually they apply to Hungary as well, so it was really hard to convince the sellers, the farmers to actually give us the the excess food they have, because if I was caught dumpster diving on the area of the market, I would be expelled from the territory. I would be expelled from the market. So we needed to convince those sellers that we are actually distributing and cooking food for the needy, for the homeless. So we made photos. We had a portfolio that we could show and present them, and by faces, by human relations, by grass movements, that's what you can call it. We actually managed to build up that now they, even though they are not allowed, but if there is a seller who puts it into your hand, then it's not considered to be a crime or violating the rules or whatever. So there are ways, but since we would like to achieve as well, to make it as a constant thing, not just on certain days, because we do this a recollection of veggies and fruits once a week, and since I belong to the middle class, and like we probably all do belong to the middle class, but what if there was a homeless, or what if there were people belonging to lower classes when they would be expelled in a second? So it's like, there are different levels of how you can, what you need to think in. So like, yeah.
You don't go to supermarkets?
No, because supermarkets are, we have a limited capacity. That's on the one hand, and on the other, they would not give you. So if you just go there with a no name, not with just a movement, without not being an official NGO, they wouldn't take you into consideration. Mm-hmm. So that's why we decided to go to the markets directly.
Well, this was also a little bit difficult when we started food sharing, because it also was not an official NGO. Then one of the co-founders invented a kind of how to say in English, like an identity card. Mm-hmm. Of course it was fake, because there were not even members somewhere, but it was like a photo and everything. It looked nice, and the supermarket bosses, they loved it very much, I can tell you. And finally there was some kind of making sure that these people that go to supermarkets have some reliability, because they enter this website, and to get the ID card and so on only if they have approved a certain level of knowledge. So they needed to make a test, and then they needed to, somebody from the group needed to say yes, he's reliable. Because if the supermarket boss tells you you come every Thursday by 6 o'clock, somebody needs to show up. If 1 week yes, 1 week no, he will stop the cooperation sometimes. So this is why the website took over, and one person also took over the task to coordinate that, and finally, but it started like you told me, and I think the main thing, what I consider as really the most important thing is that maybe not homeless people, but people that are really poor themselves, they entered the system. It's all started with environmentally conscious people from the middle class, as you told me, students, whatever. Now more and more people that are needy themselves go into food sharing. Some are being told, please dress yourself a little bit more nicely when you go to the supermarket, but that's all. They do this because, first of all, they can take a part of the food for themselves, so this is their kind of benefit, but also they want to give back something to society. That's their wish, and they feel useful. It has definitely, this is my opinion, definitely more dignity than the food bank system, where you stand in a queue and have to wait for the leftovers from the rich. So they can. For me, it's a kind of empowerment. I really consider this also a social movement.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to add. So that's what I like about food sharing, that you created that the needy people can enter. So it's not like a vertical, like a charity that goes from up to down. So, but it's more like a horizontal distribution, and they can all enter the system. And like, when you enter, you have the feeling that you do it on your own, you achieve it, then you can cook it. So it's not something that, okay, I will be given the of things.
And as I wrote, because I made more research about your activity, you opened a shop about to sell the fruits or the veggies or something like that?
I didn't open a shop. There were people from the food sharing movement that actually at some point started to, because the quantities are huge, they're endless. They discovered, okay, when we take food from the industry, we can resell them. And the first shop, small one, has been opened in my town, Cologne, and now they, one of the guys in Berlin opened a really big shop that will be, I don't know, he dreams about delivery service, whatever. It's all made of food that usually is being discarded. And food sharing itself is quite clear that there's a rule: this food cannot be sold. It must be given for free. But I don't object to commercial solutions, because there is parts of this food waste we will never get reach with food sharing. So we need both, maybe reselling and this freestyle movement.
Do you have any questions?
I mean, if we don't want to finish with food sharing, I can add. I'm crazy enough to do another film and to create another movement. I can add what was my latest baby. I did a film on because food sharing now is growing up, and there's lots of people, like 30,000 food savers all over the country. Another, I don't know, 10,000 in Austria, and Spain is starting, and Denmark, I don't know. There's lots of other countries that start their own movement, sometimes with a different name. In the Czech Republic it's called Zachran Jidlo, if anybody speaks Czech. Anyway, I think this is perfect, and it's good that there's a central structure, because in the EU the laws are similar, but still the local authorities deal with it in a different way. I think it would be even from a legal point crazy to do it on an international level, but also from this thinking that local solutions are stronger. And this got even stronger when I did my last cinema documentary on the topic how to feed the world with this growing population. It's called 10 billion, what's on your plate? 10 billion is the number of people we expect by the middle of this century on this planet. And it's more on production, but I was, after traveling a dozen of countries in the world, I was more and more convinced that those who promise that there is silver bullets, really golden solutions around, they're just making business. And in reality, there are solutions, but they are small, they are local, and they're diverse. And when I came home, of course, I first did the film, and then I thought to myself, well, can I contribute something to a solution? I was investigating a little bit. We were creating an association. We invited farmers. A lot of farmers were already inside, and we finally got convinced that an idea coming from North America, the food policy councils, is something we need, because well, I had already my experience with the food lobby, the national or the EU level. They are infected by these lobbyists of industry and trade. So we said, okay, we live in a century where cities get more and more importance, and city governments still don't have food policies. It will be important to implement food policies at least in the big cities, and we found this concept of food policy councils, and we created one in Cologne, in my town, and we have now like a dozen in Germany after 2 years. It's really a good idea, spreads quickly, and yeah, this is my last thing, and I hope at least that maybe we cannot make a revolution in this system because big corporations are strong and even get stronger. They're stronger than national governments. So that's the situation now. But what we can do is create islands of solutions like these community-supported agriculture, these associations of farmers and consumers, or other solutions where you can see another form of growing food and feeding people is possible. And they will probably be small, but they will grow, and they can grow quite a bit. This idea of community-supported agriculture is from East Asia, and there you have, like in Japan, every fourth citizen is a member of such an association. I mean, they're still having a lot of other crazy stuff, but they are obsessed by fresh veggies. Or in Korea, one of the CSAs, these community-supported agriculture, has more than 1 million members. Can be huge, and I hope that by creating such islands of solutions in a moment when there is a crisis, politics can wake up and say, okay, this has proven to be effective as an alternative. It's maybe not the moment to convince them, but it's the moment to create these situations for the future. Thank you.
So, if you don't have a question, I want to thank you, Valentin and Laszlo, for coming and speak a lot about this campaign, and I think it was very inspiring. So, I understood that it's not enough to make a documentary, but it's more important to make a community. And after that, you can reach everything, or also the people, and also you can make a documentary. So it was a very nice experience to speak about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.